delighted to welcome Mr. Scott Ian to Mosh Talks. Mate, having listened to the album this morning, I wanted to ask, firstly, in the 80s, when Bungle were around the first time, what was your view from where you were in Anthrax looking over at Mr. Bungle? Did you have an interpretation, like a first impression, when you first heard them?
I had a copy of the Raging Wrath cassette. I got it at some point in '86 through just tape trading. I used to tape trade with people around the world, and it's so archaic to even think about that. People don't even know what that means, probably. But you used to you would trade demo tapes, or you'd make copies of things that people couldn't get in other places, like on a tape, and send it to them, and they would trade you something back. Like, that's how I first heard about a lot of bands. Like, specifically, I remember getting like Merciful Fate, a cassette sent to me from a friend in Denmark, and then I would send him like some New York hardcore band or something. And but anyway, yeah, I got a copy of that Raging Wrath. It was a copy of a copy of a copy, and it sounded terrible, but and not just because it was so many generations down of copies on cassettes, but it just, it was, the recording of it is kind of a mess. But even with all of that, I could tell, I was like, this shit is crazy. Like, there is some crazy, what the hell? I had never heard anything like it, really. And but at the same time, it was really hard to listen to because it just sounded so bad. So, of course, then years later so that was the first time I ever became aware of Mike. And then, of course, when he joins Faith No More, who I was already a fan of, and then I'm like, that's the guy from Mr. Bungle. He could sing like that, right? So, I've been a Faith No More fan since way back. And then, of course, Mr. Bungle starts releasing albums on Warner Brothers in like 91. And so I get that first Mr. Bungle record, and, just like anyone else who heard it for the first time, my fucking mind was blown. I, again, never heard anything like it. So I couldn't believe that was the same band that I had heard this crazy cassette from 5 years earlier. So I've been a fan since the beginning. It's a bit of a mind fuck for me that I'm actually in the band. I played on a record and I did shows, and if it wasn't for the fact that I had all that evidence, I would think I was dreaming this whole thing.
Did you feel, because Anthrax were one of the big thrash bands at the time that were drawing from influences outside of rock and metal, and when you say you heard Bungle and you were like, these are fucking freaks, right? Did you feel a kinship, particularly with Bungle, because you were drawing from outside of just straight metal and all of the usual influences around you? You were reaching outside of that box as well.
For sure, especially even after the initial cassette I got, because I could tell right away these guys, they weren't taking themselves very seriously. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean it in a way that they weren't afraid to look outside the box of what's considered thrash metal, or, even at the times, because the Bungle stuff definitely touched on death metal and, much more extreme metal than even, Anthrax was doing at the time. So, but they did it with a sense of humor, certainly, because most of the lyrics were ridiculous. And so yes, I absolutely, I think that's probably what I loved most about it at the time, was that even the name of the band, Mr. Bungle, well, that doesn't sound like a real heavy band, but they're more brutal than anybody. So, I love the fact that they were looking outside the box from day one.
And when you went to record, so it's basically the Raging of the Wrath of the Raging Easter Bunny.
Raging Wrath.
The Raging Wrath of the Easter Bunny. Yeah. It's a mouthful, man, at this time in the morning. When you re-recorded that, you've done something similar with The Greater of Two Evils. I wonder what it was like when you're tapping into those days with the head on your shoulders now. What's that like as a musician? What's that like to kind of to go back to that period and to be doing things that are so specific to that time period? What's that like? Is it fun? Is it inspiring? Like where does that land for you as a musician?
Well, Greater of Two Evils, when we did that, it wasn't like we had much distance from a lot of those songs. These are songs that a lot of them have never left the set live. So it's not like it would be different. It would be like if we hadn't played any of those songs for 30 years and then revisited it, that would have been a completely different experience. So, I mean, it was fun recording them, like, even though we did it live in the studio. So it's not like we went back and like redid it like we were trying to remake an album. We just fired those up and did them live in the studio. So it wasn't much different than just playing a show, except really, well, we even did. We had some people come in, like a small audience, just for fun.
No way.
But the Bungle thing is completely different. First of all, I wasn't in Mr. Bungle in 1986. Of course. So it's not like I'm revisiting my past. I'm revisiting their past.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it like that. Yeah, good point.
But at the same time, when I did start learning the material, I quickly realized how familiar the riffs felt to me because, look, they told me the reason this happened with me and Dave Lombardo being in the band is because they wanted to go re-record these songs and 3 other songs that they never even demoed back then. And the only way they would do it is if they could get me and Dave to be in the band, because we were in the bands that were the biggest influences on them to even start Mr. Bungle. That's why they were even writing the material they were writing. So I quickly heard and felt when I was playing these riffs, I understand this stuff because, this is just, it's a more extreme version of what we were doing in 85 and 86. So I was able to understand it, and it made a lot of sense in my brain. The arrangements, on the other hand, are fucking insane. That's another story. And it's mind-blowing that they were so musically advanced. When they were writing this stuff back in 85, 86, they were teenagers because they're all wild, younger than I am. And so they were teenagers when they were writing this. And it's so far ahead musically than what we were doing, or Slayer or Metallica. Like, this is like what they were doing in 85, 86 is like, it's like if Rush or Frank Zappa was writing thrash songs. I mean, the arrangements are insane, and their musical knowledge and the theory behind the chords. And it's really kind of mind-blowing that this is what they were doing when they were 17 years old. It fucking blows my mind. And I try and get that across to people, because people hear it and they're like, oh, it's great. It's brutal. It sounds like that. It sounds like 80s thrash. I'm like, yeah, but you don't understand. Like, they were so far ahead. If this would have came out in 86, they would have been the best thrash metal band on the planet. If this record would have came out this way in 1986, they would have been like Tool, but in 1986 playing thrash metal. That's what I try and explain to people. It was just on another planet, but thrash metal, and no one was doing anything even close to what they were doing. Yeah. But nobody heard it back then.
And the thing is, there's bands doing 8-minute thrash songs from that period, right? But no one's doing 8-minute thrash songs like Mathematics, right? No. When it's like a crazy freak out. Zappa is a spot on comparison.
I mean, like I said, the arrangements, the song "Sudden Death." When I broke it down to learn that song, because it's like 7 minutes or whatever it is, 7.5 minutes. And the first time I listened to it all the way through, and I was like, all right, I got to listen to that again. And then again, just trying to familiarize myself, looking for any parts that repeat, trying to familiarize my brain with the arrangement of the song. Because it's not, there's no... The closest song to there's maybe 2 songs that have even close to it, anything considered linear on this record. And so Sudden Death, I actually counted how many changes I was going to be making throughout the song. Like every time I would be doing something different, and I think it came out to 93 changes
Fuck
in the
me.
song that I would have to remember. 93 changes
That's
in the song.
wild.
So to say I was intimidated in the moment would be putting it mildly.
Yeah.
So what I did was I remembered a conversation I had with Buzz from the Melvins a few years ago, because Phantomos was playing on a festival that we were on too, with Anthrax in Europe somewhere, and I'm a big fan of that as well. And I was talking to them after the show, and I was talking with Buzz, and I said, it's kind of mind blowing. I was watching you up there, and I'm just blown away. How do you remember the arrangements? Because none of it makes sense. It's not like verse, chorus, guitar solo, verse, chorus. Like, there's nothing. There's how do you? And he's like, dude, he goes, I get the songs and I learn them like a minute and a half or 2 minutes at a time. He goes, I just break it down into sections and I learn the sections. So I was like, oh yeah, that's what Buzz told me. So that's what I did with some of the songs on this record. I would learn it 2 minutes. I would take a 2-minute section, learn the next 2 minutes, put them together, learn the next 2 minutes. And that worked. So a song with 93 changes, by my third day, I kind of had it nailed.
Like, honestly, man, like, as a fucking music nerd, this shit blows my mind when it's just like, oh yeah, I turned to Buzz Osborne and had to ask him for advice. And the biggest one, and I'm sure you're going to be asked this in just about every interview you do, man, but like, it is ultimate eggplant emoji time having you and Lombardo in the same band, right? You've known each other for fucking years, but locking in with him, playing the shows and being in a band with him. Firstly, I'll ask what that's like before I ask about him as a drummer and what he brings out of you. But like, firstly, knowing him for years and being in a band with him, how does that change the dynamic, or does it?
It's great. I mean, yeah, like you said, we probably met in like 1985. So we've been friends a really long time. We've toured together over the years, whether it was Clash of the Titans back in '91 or a Big Four tour, or just, we've all known each other a long time. But yes, it's the first time we've been in a band together. And first time we've recorded an album together and got to spend such really great quality time together as friends and musicians, because between the rehearsals and then the shows and then making the record, that was a solid month and a half, I guess, of time where we were together almost every single day, and in a really intense work environment, learning these songs, but also getting to hang out, at the same time. And all of us really enjoying each other's company and just being super excited about this project, which kind of kept everybody in a really great mood and a great frame of mind. And I love Dave. I've always loved him as a person and a player. And it's fucking awesome to have him behind me. I've been super lucky, man. I spent my whole life with Charlie, on drums, and now I get to play with Dave in this, and in some of the other bands I play in, whether it's Motor Sister, I've got John Tempesta on drums, and in the Damn Things, I've got Andy Hurley on drums.
Yeah.
I mean, SOD, I got Charlie on drums. I mean, I've been really lucky to have really only played with incredible drummers my whole career.
Yeah, that's a real murderer's row of drummers. It's got to be said.
Very lucky for me, but yeah, I love Dave, and it's great. Especially at the live shows, we did the intro to Hell Awaits live, so just getting to play that with him behind me, it was just one of those. Just this is so fucking heavy. Like it just feels so good.
Like, and so I've been lucky enough to, like, I saw fucking 2 decades at least of watching Dave rip in Slayer, and I went to Vegas to see the Misfits for the first time, and like seeing him even accentuate songs that I love more than I love members of my own family is quite something. What is it about him that stands out as a drummer? Because, like you say, Benante, Tempesta, like, this is a serious lineup of drummers. What makes Dave special? What's his skill set?
He's just, he's an original. He has his own sound, his own feeling. I think the highest compliment you could pay any musician is that you know who it is within seconds of hearing them play. His feel and his style are singularly his. He created that with Slayer. His feeling and his playing and his ideas are such a huge part of the Slayer sound. And it's unmistakable. It's just him. It's it's Dave. He's a complete original.
And where's the line for you guys in here's Bungle and what Bungle do, but there's a very Scott Ian sound, right? When the first single came out, and there's that tight, palm-muted, fucking menacing style. All right, the riff existed before, but you can feel the Scott Ian in it. Where's the line between serving Bungle and being Scott Ian?
Well, I don't feel like I don't think there is it. Am I saying this right? They're not mutually exclusive. It's just me.
Yeah.
They asked me to play in the band because they want my sound, and to give credit where credit is due. Trey is an unbelievable guitar player, and it was hard for me sometimes to keep up with him. I mean, he's the guy that wrote a lot of these insane riffs that are faster than Slayer speed. So sometimes it was up to me to just be like, fuck, dude, like, how did you play that part? And then I would spend a week working on it until I could play it at the proper speed and as tight as it needed to be. Granted, look, even in all the bands I've been in over the years, but like obviously mainly Anthrax, but even in SOD, we played a lot of very extreme stuff and very fast, but not for the amount of time we're doing it. SOD songs were very short.
Yeah, for real.
Very short bursts of energy. Bungle songs, you have to have that same energy for 7 minutes, and the energy. I'm not 25 anymore. Let me just put it that way. Yeah. So I'm playing like I used to have to play when I was in my 20s. Now 4 times as long, which, like, why not make things more difficult for myself? But at the same time, it's so much fun to do it because, I've never really played music this fast or this intense for the amount of time. I mean, when we played this live, it was basically an hour and 10 minutes with even all the some of the covers we were doing from bands like Siege and some of these other bands were even faster and more intense than the Bungle stuff. So it's kind of a mind-blowing amount of adrenaline and energy to do it. But it's like something I'm experiencing for the first time all these years later. As someone who's been playing in a thrash band, that even this is like, for me, it was like I need to work. I really need. It took me a solid 3 months to have the stamina in my right arm. My right hand, to really build up that stamina so I could play them and sound like me and play tight. It took about 3 months to get there.
And I should ask, how did the decision come to put the SOD cover in there?
Mike asked if he said, we want to do an SOD song. What song should we do? And I said, you tell me. I'm whatever you want to do. And he said, well, it's hard. I like them all. And I'm like, whatever you guys decide, I'll leave that up to you guys. And he came back and he said, what if we do Speak English or Die, but change it to Speak Spanish or Die?
So sick.
It would be, it would be our own little way of saying fuck you to the current administration here in America and their feelings toward immigrants. So we just thought it was perfect song at the perfect time.
Well, as one of them, we thank you. I guess the last thing I want to ask before I let you go, man, is with it being lockdown, in the middle of this interview, you pointed at like all of the myriad of projects that you're involved in, and everyone's been writing. Where's your writing been going? Bit of Anthrax, bit of the Damn Things, bit of this, that, and the other. Like, what's the last couple of months been like creatively for you, Scott?
We've been working on Anthrax for sure. I mean, we started writing new Anthrax last year, obviously without a crystal ball, knowing what was going to happen in the world, but with the intent of having a record out this year. Obviously, that's not happening now. So we're still writing. We're still working on it. The COVID has obviously put a crimp in our plans because we can't just get together and jam when we want to, and traveling has become not so easy and all of that. So we've just been slowly but surely working on new material. And if anything, it just affords us more time to come up with more stuff. I mean, we've never been the kind of band to have like 30 songs and then we're going to choose the best 10. We've never done that. I think the most we've ever had is maybe 2 more than we've needed for a record. And it's usually pretty obvious which will be like, these 2 aren't going to make the record. But, maybe this time around we'll end up with 15 songs or something. And but because we're afforded this much time to be writing, it's not like it's just like we're going to know, well, these are the 10 for the record and who knows what we'll do with these 5. So I have the feeling it's going to be more like we're going to have 15 album tracks. We're not releasing a double record if it's up to me, but right. Because what a waste of material that would be. But I just like the fact that we will have a lot of great material, and hopefully at some point, who knows, by the end of this year, it's already the end of this year. So maybe sometime like early next year, we'll be ready to go in and make a record if it makes sense. Yeah. I've said it. I've said it before. I don't want to put a record out till we could play shows.
Totally.
For me to put a record out in a vacuum, it makes no sense to me. I'm not going to put a record out and then not play proper gigs. It's just I'm not going to do that. Yeah. So we have to be patient. Everyone has to be patient. We can't wait to play shows again. That's all I want to do. Yeah. This is the longest I think we've ever not played a show. Our last Anthrax show was November 15th of last year. Lucky for me, at least I had the Bungle shows in February. Yeah. So those were the last shows I played. So, I
can't believe those Bungle shows were this fucking year. That's blown my mind. It feels like it was forever ago.
Seems like ages ago. Making the record literally seems like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, the last 7 months, well, what is it? March, April, May, June, July, August, September. Almost 7 months since quarantine started here. Sometimes it feels like 5 years. Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Time has really become weird. But yeah, new Anthrax for sure. And there's going to be a new Motor Sister record. We were actually in the studio making the Motor Sister record when quarantine started. So all we have left on that is some guitars and vocals, which we're hoping to go in December and finish it. Again, when it will come out, I can't say, because again, I just don't. I don't want to put out a record without the ability to go play for people. So there's that, and there's that. Nothing going on with Damn Things right now. But it's something. We're all friends, so it's something that hopefully at some point in the future that's something we'll get to do again.
And does the Anthrax stuff have a vibe yet? If you've been writing for a while, is there a vibe to this material?
Yeah, it sounds like us.
That's good enough for me, mate.
I think it's even a step compared to if I have to like worship music and then For All Kings, if I had to say what this next record sounds like to me or a vibe, in a way it's riffier. It's a riffier record. I think we've kind of proved to ourselves over the last 2 records that we we've gotten pretty good at a certain style of Anthrax songwriting, and now we've taken a left turn away from that because we don't want to do the same thing again. So if anything, I think this record's a little bit riffier, maybe a little less linear, and certainly faster. Like I said, we've always been really good at making things more difficult for ourselves. So if anything, yeah, I hate to say like, well, it's more of a thrash metal record, because I'll let people decide what it is when they hear it. But from my point of view, it's definitely faster and riffier.
And has there been any talk of more Bungle, like more original Bungle?
Not even out yet.
Oh yeah, but like, come on, man! I know these songs. Help a brother out.
Mike, Mike does have like 62 bands, so
he does. This is true.
He's a very busy man. Let's get this one out, and see how the cards play out over the next 2 years. First thing we want to do, besides the album coming out, is we want to play more shows.
Yeah, man.
The plan for Bungle was to release this record, October 30th, and play shows in November and December. Get to play other places around the world, and even early next year. I don't think there was the intention isn't to go out and do 18 months or something, but at least go out and play enough shows where everyone would be able to experience it. Come to the UK, go to Europe, do a little bit of South America, Japan, Australia, a couple more dates in the States. Just enough to keep it special and hit everywhere and give everyone an opportunity to just see how fucking killer this is.
Yeah.
And then who knows if we get to do it again? Amazing. I certainly want to. The idea of writing songs with these guys would be amazing for me. To sit in a room with Mike and Dave and Trevor and Trey, it would be insane. So fingers crossed, someday that happens.
And I'm so glad that you're going to do more shows, because speaking from experience, it was like a fucking Royal Rumble getting tickets for those shows. It was out of control. So I'm glad that my friends around the world are going to get to experience that. The Bungle record drops at the end of October. Scott, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for all of the fucking music, man. Hero.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers, Scott. All the best, mate.
Right on, brother. Thanks.
Don't forget to like and share this video, and join me on Twitch every Tuesday, Friday and Saturday for guest hangouts, new music votes, tier lists, band-specific competitions, weekly merch roundups, and much, much more. That's twitch.tv/Mosh Talks. Find the link in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you on KNOTFEST.com for all of the latest news, features, and much more from the worlds of rock, metal, and beyond.